for a fan film, but then the fan film was already made and the audition tape was new. So
Yeah, let's talk for a
maybe.
second about all the Miles stuff. So that came almost after last week's show where it was like,
But
hey,
didn't we talk about it last week?
kind of, because there was
I know there was because I was trying to. I should have actually looked. I was trying to remember for this week if we talked about anything Miles from last week, and I was like, I'm certain we did.
so we
It might
did.
not have been everything, but it's definitely something.
Yeah, it wasn't everything because audition tape hit and then it was taken down, and it's definitely for Miles. And again, I've said it. I directly know somebody that was involved with something happening with it, and it was 100% for Miles. So it's a weird scenario, but whatever they're doing with Miles, it's happening. Like that, the whole thing
yeah.
is a thing. We just don't know what the extent of it is and what the hell they're trying to do and what direction they're going in,
Yeah.
which brings a lot into question of, is Miles just going to show up in this damn movie? Like,
I mean, why not? There's a lot of people going on about how it's too early. You know, he needs Peter to do this and Peter to do that. It's like, no, he really doesn't.
no.
Miles didn't have a Peter. Peter was dead. He was dead as a donut. He was flat as a pancake.
Especially
That dude was
if it's a
deceased.
multiverse version of Miles. Like,
Exactly.
who's to say that this Miles isn't going to be like, oh yeah, my Spider-Man died fighting the Rhino. Oh, the Amazing Spider-Man. Okay, like, all right.
You
Like,
could be like, my Spider-Man died of old age.
That
He
too,
was
yeah.
26. No, he was in high school for 20 years. He
so
just
Tobey
died.
Maguire.
He was an old man, and he just collapsed. You know, I'd be perfectly fine if Miles came from the Raimi-verse,
Same.
and you know you say kill Toby, people are like, oh, don't kill him off screen. It's like, no, have him die on screen. Like, don't just do that. You know, the fan base of those movies don't deserve it, but don't do them like that. That's just a bit much.
Yeah.
You know, have Toby see Toby fail and die, and then Miles take up the spot and then become himself. Because then you can treat it a bit like Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I've always said that, you know, oh, I don't want to be multiverse characters because it's not ours, so why should you care about them that much? But there are exceptions to rules, and Miles, that's literally his story.
Yeah.
He is another dimensional Spider-Man that gets merged into our one. Do that here.
Yeah.
It's the perfect opportunity to do it. Like, why not?
It really is. Like, I think the whole thing with Miles is Sony has seen the money that Miles can bring in. There's Miles comics constantly sell, and he's constantly printing issues. Sony decided that, hey, instead of Spider-Man 2, we're going to make a Miles game that's a companion to our biggest game of all time because they know there's money there. And Marvel was like, yeah, we're definitely doing it. Like, why would you not want to? He has animated films. That character's awareness is so part of pop culture now that it's hard to find someone that doesn't know who he is.
Yeah, like, he is poised for a movie, and I'm surprised he hasn't been announced officially yet for something.
Yeah.
we all know he's coming. And so, you know, the Aaron Davis that we know, his Miles doesn't necessarily have to be Spider-Man. Yes, he could become Spider-Man. You know, you could do the whole Toby thing, have Miles come in, and then that's just introducing the concept of that Miles to everything. That our Miles hasn't appeared yet. You can play it off that way because it's a multiverse. Things don't have to happen in the same way at the same time, or even with the same actors. But that concept is there. Just use it.
Yeah, like,
because it's not, you know, you have a cake and eat it. Miles doesn't have a mentor. He never did. So people are saying that Peter's got to be his mentor. No, go read Miles again. He never had anyone. The only thing Peter done for him was give him the web slingers. That's it. And Jessica Drew was not a mentor type. So you can do that, and then you can have a younger Miles in a couple of years in the main timeline. Maybe Peter mentors him, but at the same time, I don't think you need that because Peter's constantly learning. And also, it kind of goes against Miles's do it your own way sort of a thing. So I suppose you could start off being like, yeah, I'm going to teach you the ropes, and then he's like, I don't tend to agree with that, and then he goes to find Kamala and the champions.
I mean, that could work. And like, why? I know there's some people opposed to it, but why can't we have multiple spider people running around the MCU, because if they are in fact working on the whole Spider-Woman thing together, which it definitely seems like, and she's not technically a spider person, but Silk is happening, you're going to get there regardless of whether you like it or not. So why not just do it, right? Like,
if you can accept it in the comics, you can accept it in the movies. We've had 2 Iron Men running around for 10 years.
Yeah. It's so true.
Captain America the Winter Soldier introduced another Captain America.
Yeah. It's honestly kind of crazy.
There's literally a show coming out called Hawkeye. And guess what? Has both Hawkeyes in it.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Like, you can have more than one.
Yeah, I think people are just too... I don't even know what people's issue would be. I think it's the protective... Like...
It's that I like this thing, I don't like that thing, so therefore only my thing can happen.
Yeah.
I don't want to share, sort of a thing.
Right. And it's kind of a, I don't know, it feels like it's like a bad mentality to have, because there's so much you could do with multiple Spider-Man, and like, could you imagine the great scenes you could have between Miles and Peter in the MCU and them teaming up and things? Like, there's so much potential there. I just don't see I don't see a disadvantage, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, it could give us more land. Give us more land. Do Spider-Verse proper.
That would be really cool. That would honestly be really cool to do. Because then you could do like the whole spider totems thing, and you could bring in all the spider people together, which...
Exactly.
Again, why wouldn't you want that? It does... I don't know. It seems like... I think people are just opposed to it because they're like, don't touch the thing that I like, right? Like...
Yeah. I think it's also a case of, people are so attached to Peter Parker as being the only Spider-Man, which has never really been the case.
Yeah.
So I never got that idea. And it's like, yes, Peter Parker is, he is Spider-Man. Let's be honest. Like, it's the originator. He's the first. He's the most popular for a reason. But it doesn't mean you can't share.
Right. It's like
Spider-Man. Like, the whole point of Spider-Man is that he can be anyone. So why can't anyone be Spider-Man?
Mm-hmm. And I think Spider-Verse, the movie, the animated movie, showed us that exact sentiment. Anybody, any version of Spider-Man can exist. This character can endure for longer than most of us think, and there can be a different version. And like, we see like a futuristic robot girl version, whatever the hell, like it's not just confined to Peter Parker, but I think people are just afraid it's like, if you remove it or move it from Peter Parker to somebody else, that Peter's going to get somehow left behind. And I don't see why people would think that.
I'm going to completely attribute that. This might just be a whole age thing, but it's people that have only known Spider-Man through these movies where he's alone.
Yep.
Like, obviously not in a bad way. Not everyone has to read comics. I'm not going to say, "Oh, go read a comic book."
Yeah,
But it's Parker's never. Maybe that the old Stan Lee run. Like, sure, I know people take that run as gospel. Is it the best run? No, it's not the best run. It's good, not the best run. But for a long time, the majority of people's lives, Spider-Man has not been alone. Peter Parker's not been alone. Hell, Peter Parker was Ben Reilly for what? 10 years for Clone Saga,
right?
However long that bloody thing went on for. He's never been alone. There's always been someone there. And those movies came along, and then suddenly he's on his own. Yeah. So I wonder if that has played a part in people's perception of the character.
Definitely.
And now it's like, Miles isn't out to replace Spider-Man. Yes, in the art in which Peter died and Miles took up the spot, but that's just for that. That wasn't the core universe. And now, guess what? He's sharing the spot with Peter.
Mm-hmm.
He's not replacing him. He's a completely different character doing his own thing. Yes, they cross over because obviously they're Spider people. They are Spider-Man, but they're doing their own thing. They're their own people, different ideas. They're not replacing one another. Like, you can do that. Like, how many Spider books did you have at one point?
Right.
There was Peter, there was Miles, there was Silk, there was Jessica Drew, there was hundreds at once.
I mean,
they can share the same ecosystem.
They can, and that's the thing with it. I think Spider-Man means so much to so many different people in so many different ways, and I think he has been sort of like pigeonholed into this one thing that maybe he's not only that one thing, but people don't want to look past that. And it's like, yes, look, it's kind of like how people think about Batman. They're like, well, no, Batman used to use guns all the time. When? And they point you the same 4 issues, and they're like, well, that's my whole argument. Just the same thing with Superman killing, right? People formulate an argument around that one notion and sentiment and frame of mind. It's like, well, this is how it's always been, even if it hasn't, and it doesn't really work.
And it's like Twitch chat right now saying, Peter needs to mature to where he accepts help and makes a steady life with a partner. Does he need to have that for when Miles is around? Like, I mean, sure, that could be an end goal for Peter, but does that need to be who Spider-Man is? Because I know they were married for a fair while in the comics, but for the majority of that character's existence, he was never married.
I just want to bring up something. Most people will watch Spider-Verse and tell you that Peter B. Parker is amazing and they love that Spider-Man. And he gives up all the ideals that Spider-Man did and just sits around, gets fat, and abandons life. So why can't we accept that on film, right? I don't know. People just have this... It's a weird notion. Spider-Man fans...
there's a very weird perception.
There is, I just... It confuses me sometimes. I'm just like, I don't get why that's a issue here, but not there. And it's weird. Hopefully they can do it, because I really want to see Miles done justice and right on film. And I think they'll nail it, because whatever they're doing with him, I think it's going to be great. Like that's...
And he's coming sooner or later, whether you want it or not.
Yep.
So it's either just open the mind and get used to it now, or spend money later on and get mad at it.